This is the most pressing of the day for sure. Israel orders partial evacuation of Rafah, fueling fears of new offensive. Hamas says it has agreed to a ceasefire plan that Israel said did not meet its demands, the latest in a long series of negotiating stumbles, as the New York Times puts them. Israeli warplanes pounded targets in the southern Gaza city of Rafah on Monday as the military told about 110,000 people sheltering there to evacuate. Many people began to leave, fearing that Israel was moving ahead with its long-planned invasion of Rafah, despite stiff international pressure. Yeah, stiff pressure. Right. If it were stiff, they wouldn't be planning on doing it. The Israeli military began dropping leaflets in eastern Rafah, telling people to move to what it called a humanitarian zone to the north, and said it would also notify people by text messages, phone calls, and broadcasts in Arabic. I hope the Wi-Fi is good in those tents so they can get those text messages. Yeah. And on Monday night, the Israeli military carried out another round of what it called targeted strikes in Rafah against Hamas. 2/3 of the victims of those targeted strikes, by the way, women and children. What else?
I heard they got a crazy Warhammer League going on in the camps there.
An infant was killed. 7-year-old boy lost his twin brother in those targeted strikes. Targeted, quote unquote. There's video that I can't show you here. I wouldn't if I could. It's horrible. If you want to seek it out, I can't advise you to, but it's there for you to see. So here's a map of the evacuation zone. Area under evacuation order: southeast Gaza Strip, eastern Rafah near the Rafah border crossing, which Russ has some information on in a few minutes. And then this dark shaded gray area is the supposed humanitarian zone where they're instructing people to flee. Notice up there to the north, not safe again. That was safe a few weeks ago, quote unquote, not safe anymore. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said in a statement late on Monday that the war cabinet had decided unanimously to continue with its action in Rafah in order to exert military pressure on Hamas, though it was not clear if that meant the latest airstrikes or something broader. It's pretty clear it means something broader. They have tanks lined up already. A military spokesman would not say when troops might enter the crowded city, but described the evacuation as part of Israel's plan to dismantle Hamas and to free hostages taken on October 7th. Hours after the evacuation order, the political leader of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, issued a statement that the group had accepted a new ceasefire proposal from Qatar and Egypt, which have acted as intermediaries in peace talks. The group and Israeli officials said it was not referring to the proposal that Israel recently agreed to, leaving the conflict unresolved. On Sunday, the talks appeared to reach an impasse, with Israel and Hamas still sharply at odds over the duration of any truce, and each side blaming the other for the failure to strike a deal. Hamas wants a permanent ceasefire, while Mr. Netanyahu of Israel has expressed openness only to a temporary halt in the fighting and has said Israel would invade Rafah with or without an agreement. Yoav Gallant, Israel's defense minister, met with the relatives of the hostages on Monday and told them that we are committed to achieving the war's objectives, but Hamas's rejection of any framework that would allow the release of the hostages compels us to start the Rafah operation, according to a statement from his office. Even after the start of the operation in Rafah, Mr. Gallant said all efforts to return the hostages will continue. On Monday, President Biden spoke to Netanyahu and updated him on the hostage talks, which were continuing on Monday in Qatar, according to a brief summary of the call released by the White House. Mr. Biden also reiterated his clear position on Rafah. This clear position was a red line a few months ago. Let's see if it remains a red line, because rumor has it they compromised on that. And those rumors are looking truer and truer every day. The White House statement said Mr. Netanyahu's office did not immediately release its own summary of the conversation. After the Israeli military issued its evacuation order, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak of Britain reiterated that he remained deeply concerned about an invasion, while Saudi Arabia's foreign ministry warned Israel against advancing what it called a bloody and systematic campaign to storm all of Gaza and displace its residents. Yeah, when Saudi Arabia says, whoa, too far, that's how you know you're going too far. In Rafah, some Palestinians quickly dismantled their tents in the pouring rain and began leaving. Others questioned whether it was safe to leave. Gazans and aid groups have said that the Israeli military has bombed areas that it has previously designated as safe for civilians. We're going to watch a few minutes of an Al Jazeera report on this evacuation right now.
The army has warned all residents and displaced people to leave the eastern neighborhoods of Rafah. It says they must move to the Al-Mawasi area near the coastline. That's ahead of what it says will be the use of extreme force in the eastern part of the city. More than 1.5 million people have been sheltering in Rafah after the Israeli army forced them out of northern and central Gaza. Well, we're joined now by Hani Mahmoud, who's in Rafah in southern Gaza. Hani, what's happening there on the ground right now?
Yes, well, following an intense night of extreme airstrikes, relentless airstrikes across the eastern and the central part of Rafah city caused the murder of 20 people so far, mostly women and children. The Israeli military has early hours this morning issued statements along with a map for evacuation. The orders are very extreme, very sharp, and use intimidating language describing what's going to happen in the eastern part of the city, along with the use of extreme force and an extreme military operation is going to take place at the eastern part of Rafah city. That includes all the area eastern of Salah ad-Din Road and almost close to the center Rafah city. That's at the western part of Salah ad-Din Road. That will include definitely Rafah crossings. And as of yesterday, we learned that Karm Abu Salim crossing has been completely shut down. And the operation right now that is included, Rafah crossing right now, including in the evacuation orders, will be closed as soon as the operation is started in the eastern part of Rafah city. People are in a state of panic and shock, despite that they expected that to happen, but did not expect it to happen rapidly. We were approached by people who were asking about where are the evacuation zones, and we looked at the maps, and what we've seen so far, it stretches from the central area, from Deir al-Balah city, passing through Khan Yunis, mainly in the central part of Khan Yunis and the western part of Khan Yunis, all the way to the evacuation zone here in the western part of Rafah city. These are the three major areas. The leaflets designated as safe areas in which they will be receiving, according to the leaflet dropped by the Israeli military. According to this leaflet, it says this is where all the humanitarian support will be directed. That is something indicating, as many people reacted to this, that this operation is going to be long, and it's unclear without any time frame when it's going to end. And that's what's going on right now on the ground. People have started to move toward the central area and the western part of Rafah city. It's important also to point out the past 3 days witnessed a quiet evacuation, sort of people who somehow predicted that the talks in Cairo about the ceasefire were not making any solid progress, and the Israeli military, in light of the growing threats of expanding the operation into Rafah city, they started to move quietly to areas that are not designated by the Israeli military as safe zones, given the past failures of the Israeli military to assure that these evacuation zones are in fact safe.
I mean, just an incredibly tragic situation. And I want you to look at this map here, because Israel is saying this is going to be an extremely aggressive act when they go in. Right. Now, if they're using the word extreme, just like when Netanyahu used the word unprecedented to describe their response to October 7th, and we knew that was going to be genocide, because genocide is the only violence that would truly be unprecedented on Israel's part. When they say how extreme this is going to be, look at that red line that they drew through the city of Rafah. I mean, these are city streets. Russell mentioned this in the past. We've talked about this in the past. This map, this is not the first time we've seen this. They have numbered zones, and they'll say, okay, now go to zone whatever, 26, now zone 7, now zone 4. You're telling me Israel knows with confidence that their bombardment is going to end at these red lines here. I mean, come on.
Well, they don't care. They don't care. They'll tell you to go there and bomb you there anyway.
Well, that's what I mean. It's 1.5 million people. You're saying 100,000 need to be evacuated when the city of Rafah has 1.5 million. Now, they would say, well, most of those 1.5 million are in the gray zone, not the red zone, so they're not in immediate danger. Yeah. Take them at their word for that, I'm sure, right? Secondly, even if the number is 100,000, according to a report I saw, they're evacuating at a rate of about 200 per hour. So they're not going to get anywhere near that many people out of there. And we know Israel is not going to wait to do this. They already have tanks parked outside of the Rafah crossing.
They don't care. They don't care.
Right.
They just want to be able to say that they tried to do something.
That's it. It is all about plausible deniability when the ICC warrant gets handed down or when the ICJ ruling gets handed down or under any circumstance. They want to be able to say we dropped leaflets, we made text messages. It's up to them.
Please clap.